Greetings, greetings, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Faith to Faith. My name is Louise Calix, and I just want to thank those who are watching now or whenever you're going to be watching this video. I'd also like to thank those who took the time to watch my first introductory video from last week. Thank you for liking, for commenting, for subscribing, and I'm praying that the Lord will continue to expand and enlarge in this ministry. I want to take the time also to note, yes, there are definite imperfections and things that over time I hope to correct. I know the lighting was kind of spotty and all over the place, but I'm just asking for grace and patience because let me tell you, if I was waiting for everything to be perfect to start this channel, it was never going to happen. So one of the things that I said in my description from last week is that I'm not really aiming for perfection because perfectionism can be a bit overrated, but I'm striving for progress. And I want us all to get into that mindset that we're always aiming for progress. So if you were better than you were yesterday, you've done a great thing and you're on the right track. So once again, thank you. Thank you so much for rocking with me. So for today's topic, I honestly was a little hesitant because I felt like it was a bit elemental and I think just a little too basic. But after I thought about it, I realized this is the whole nature of this channel, that we are on a journey, on a progress of faith. Like our faith is supposed to be progressing. So if you don't start somewhere, then you're not going anywhere. And no matter what you're doing in life, no matter where you are right now in your career, business, relationship, whatever it is, everyone had to have started from somewhere. So if we're going to go on this journey together and starting with me, and I want to hear about your faith journey, we need to start somewhere. So that's why this is entitled like your first faith experience story. And I know everyone needs a first faith experience story. And the reason why is because there comes a point where God is no longer like this pie in the sky figure that you heard about if you've grown up in the church all your life. He's no longer, this pie in the sky figure. Or he's no longer the God of your parents and he becomes your God. Now, if you haven't grown up in faith or in church all your life and this is new to you, that's completely okay. There's always a place to start. And if you're wondering how to have that faith experience to know whether or not God is real or to know, does he care about the basic things of your life, I would simply say ask for it. Just ask for God to show you himself strong in his life. And I know it sounds a bit too simple, but truly it's as simple as asking for it. And again, why this is important is because it forms the foundation for your forward progress on the journey of faith. And I've used this analogy before, but there's the analogy of the ladder in terms of the faith journey. So when you're climbing a ladder, the first thing that you do is you get on that first rung. Why? It's the most basic, most accessible level to get up the ladder. And you get on there and you test the ladder, you put your full weight on that first rung. And if it's secure, it's stable, it holds you up, then you have the confidence and you have the feeling of reliability that I can continue to go upward, because as you go upward, it's more scary, it's riskier because it's higher. So there's more potential for you to hurt yourself. Now, in the same way, if you get on that first rung and you fall through, you're going to be very hesitant before you go to the next ladder, to go to the next step. In fact, you're probably going to throw the whole ladder away and not go up. In the same way, when it comes to God, you need that first experience of being able to put your full weight on his power and glory and to realize, okay, I can have the confidence to go forward and increase my faith, because it does get riskier and scarier over time. You have to trust the Lord with more. So that's why this first step in this faith story is so, so important. So I'm about to tell you my first faith story experience, but first I want to reference someone whose first experience story is is detailed in the Bible. And that person is Gideon. And the story of Gideon is found in the book of Judges. It's the sixth chapter of Judges, and his story is detailed from the sixth chapter to the eighth chapter. For those who don't know the story of Gideon, so Gideon is he is alive in the time where the nation of Israel, they're frequently being invaded by enemy territories, by enemy nations. And the reason why that's happening is that the people of Israel became pretty comfortable and they started worshiping the gods of their neighbors and their enemies, basically. And God kind of stepped back. And so they were getting invaded a lot. And that's pretty normal. That typically what happens when we kind of choose idols, no God idols in our lives instead of God. God kind of steps back because you made a choice. God is really a perfect gentleman. He really does believe in your choice, in your freedom to choose. So this is when this story is happening. Now, at that time in Gideon's time, it was the Midianites that were the invading nations, and they were particularly oppressive because they would just take all their crops. All the crops that they had, they would steal them as soon as it was time to harvest them. And not only that, they would take their cattle, their goats, or their sheep, all the animals that they used to survive, and even the animals they needed to actually produce a harvest and to produce crops. So basically, the Israelites were essentially starving. And so it was a difficult time for them. So Gideon, smart young man that he is, he's actually in the process of like harvesting, of gathering his harvest, but he's also hiding it from the Midianites so that they wouldn't take all his hard earned, his hard worked crops and so that he could survive. So he's hiding it when all of a sudden the angel of the Lord comes to him and says, "You mighty hero, the Lord is with you." Now, I love Gideon because he's so real. He's so real. So when the angel of the Lord says, "You mighty hero, the Lord is with you," he's pretty much saying out loud what we all would be thinking, the same thing. If the Lord is really with us, then why are all these things happening? And we ask that all the time. Things happen in our lives and we're wondering, where is God? If he's really good, if he's really loving, why are these things happening? Um, and it's a tough thing. And I think, because of sin in general, sometimes we are the victims of choices that we didn't even make. The sins of our forefathers, our ancestors, the sins of the nation, the sins of society and culture, they all have something to do with why we are kind of in this sin sick world. And so Gideon has the transparency and the honesty to ask questions that we we sometimes have of God and along our faith journey. And I love the response of the angel of the Lord. FYI, sometimes in the Old Testament, when you see the angel of the Lord, a lot of times, many times, it is actually the Lord himself. It's like a pre-incarnate version of Christ before he actually came to the earth as a baby. I've always thought that's pretty interesting and cool. So the response that he gives to him is that, "I've chosen you to deliver the Israelites from the Midianites. I've chosen you to be the one." And I love that response. Sometimes we don't have a choice as to the situations that we find ourselves in. We don't have a choice into the families we were born into or the socioeconomic status sometimes that we were born into. We don't have a choice for these things, but God is saying, how about you? I've chosen you to be the curse breaker. I've chosen you to be the one that breaks the cycle in your family. I've chosen you to be the problem solver. I've chosen you to be the answer to the problem that you are having right now in your generation, your society, your culture, your nation, your world. And I love that because we may be in situations that we didn't choose, but we don't have to stay victims if only we're willing to partner up with God to be the solution. So I love that the Lord tells him that. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. So essentially, the Lord tells him, listen, I've chosen you to be the deliverer. And again, I told you I love Gideon because he's so real, right? He literally says, how I am, the weakest of my tribe. And I am from the weakest tribe in Manasseh. So how is this even possible? And I love how real and transparent Gideon is. Listen, the story of Mary, being told by the angel that you're going to be impregnated by the Holy Spirit and you will have a child, his name will be Jesus, is amazing. It's incredible. But sometimes I'm like, Mary's faith must have been on steroids. She had faith on steroids because I would have had 1,000,001 questions for God as to how this is happening, especially knowing how society is. We would have had a very in-depth conversation. But she was so gracious when she just said, let the will of the Lord be done. And I'm like, that's amazing. But I think I relate more to Gideon as to like, how is this going to happen again? Like, really, how am I about to be the deliverer? So again, he's really so relatable. Gideon is so relatable. And the Lord just goes on to tell him, yeah, I've chosen you. The Lord is with you, and I am going to fight for you. And it's going to be, I'm going to be the one to really deliver. I'm going to be with you. And Gideon does what we all honestly would do. He asked for a sign. He asked for a sign. Let me tell you, Gideon asked for multiple signs just to show how relatable he is. Even when he'd get one sign, he would ask for another in reverse. And I don't want to, give you the whole story. I want you to actually go and read the book of Judges, read Judges 6 through 8 to read his entire story. But basically, Gideon's claim to fame is that he put out a fleece. Literally, the fleece is just a fleece blanket that he used for God to show him a sign, whether it's really you. Because really, we all have that question. Sometimes we get thoughts in our heads and we want to know, is this really God? Is this our imagination, or is this the enemy playing tricks with us? Sometimes we really don't know. And especially when we're first starting to walk with the Lord, and even when you've walked with the Lord all the time, you still don't know. You just have a bit more of a reliable history to know, is this God or is this not? But Gideon really was like, nah, I want to make sure this is you, because if I'm about to put my life on the line here, I need to make sure that's you. And we all get into that situation where we want to know, is this really, really God? And so he put out a fleece. And in the faith community, we use that term in a really general way now. We don't do it exactly the way Gideon did, but when we say we're putting out a fleece, it's like we're setting up a test. We're asking God for a sign, and this is the way we're gonna find it out. God, if you do this, I know that means that this is your will. That means that this is what you want. And, it's really interesting because some of us might ask, is this even biblical? And I think, yeah, it is biblical. If Gideon did it, obviously we can do it. So I would love to know. I would love to engage with you to know, like, has any of you ever put out a fleece? Has any of you ever asked God for a sign, for an answer that you need? Or what was your first faith experience where you did something like that? For me, it happened years ago when I was a young lady of 16, about to enter 17, and I was about to make the one of the biggest decisions of my life as to where to go to college. And I don't know, I've always thought very far. I've always thought very far. So I kind of realized this wasn't just a decision to go to college. This was going to impact my way, impact my life in a major way. I knew that I might find lifelong friends in college. I knew that college would help me determine what my career was going to be, what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Maybe even marriage. I could have got married in college. Didn't happen. But, at 16, 17, I was thinking about things like that. So I just couldn't just make a choice. What if I end up making the wrong choice? Your girl had a little bit of decision anxiety going on, and sometimes I still have that a little bit because I think so much of every possibility. But I'm glad that that so-called weakness turned into a strength simply because I knew that I had to turn to God. This was that moment for me. I'd grown up in the church. I was a pastor's daughter. I knew about God, but this was the first experience where for real, like, okay, God, like, I need you to be real in my life. I don't need you to be just that far off being I've heard about. I need you to really, really show me what your will is. I need you to help me with this decision. So I prayed about it and I asked the Lord to lead me. And there was one school in particular that really, really stood out to me. It really just, I was drawn to it. I was so attracted to this school. Something about it was like there was a light around the school. And it was Temple University in Philadelphia, SDA. I'm sorry, did I say SDA? No, it was in Philadelphia. Um, and it was a pretty much not affiliated with a religious institution, but something about the roots, I could feel the spiritual nature. And the school was pretty much founded by a Baptist preacher. So I felt those roots. So I just really wanted to go there. I just felt very drawn to there. So I was starting to really believe that God wanted me to go to that school. And I was pretty much confident until I went to go visit the school with my mom and dad. And let me tell you, my mother took every opportunity that she had to not only trash the school, but to trash the entire city of Philadelphia. Like, she just had a complaint about everything. She just didn't like anything about it. And it really took my confidence level, it just dropped it to the ground. Now I really didn't know what to do, and time was really getting close. And I was devastated. I didn't know if God was speaking to my mother. I did not know. I can fast forward a little bit to tell you that my mother purposely trashed the school and purposely trashed the city of Philadelphia because, in her mind, it couldn't have ever been possible that the Lord would take her baby girl and send her away so far to go to school. So she was helping, to get me back to my senses by exaggerating how bad the school in the city was. It makes me really think that for us as a people, this is why we really need to depend on God to really lead us and guide us. We can't even rely 100% on our loved ones and our families, our close mentors to really guide us, because sometimes they might be ulterior motives to why they're choosing a certain way. And at the end of the day, they just don't know. Nobody knows the end from the beginning except God. So we really have to make sure that we're getting our direction from God. I know the Bible says honor your mother and your father, but the buck stops at God. Like, you need to follow God no matter what. So I was stuck in a tough situation where I didn't know what to do. The school that I had my hopes to go to was trashed by my loving mother, and I wasn't sure what God's direction really was. So at the end of the day, I knew I needed to do something more drastic. I knew I needed to put out my own fleece. So I took everything that I knew, from growing up in the church to come to the decision. I decided I was going to fast and pray. This was the first time I fasted and prayed. So I took everything that I knew in order to do this. So I decided to spend 2 to 3 hours. I don't remember exactly, 2 to 3 hours to fast and pray. And how I did it was I decided to take 7 songs because I'm Haitian. So I've always heard about Haitians doing 7 songs, 7 psalms, psalms in the book of the Bible, and 7 prayers, and I decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I picked 7 songs to sing to get into a spirit of worship. I took 7 psalms in the book of Psalms to choose from to read, and I would do prayers throughout the entire process. Now, here was my fleece. This was my sign that God was leading me. I said, if I saw the word temple 7 times in the reading of the chapters of the pre-selected, and I was going to randomly select the Psalms that I would be reading. If I saw temple 7 times, I knew that God was leading me to Temple University. Now, it's definitely an interesting way of choosing what school you're going to, but it's all I knew at that time. And I literally did that fast. And in my 7 readings, I certainly saw Temple 7 times. And that really stabilized my confidence. It really built my confidence that this is where God wanted me to go. Was it elemental? Was it basic? Yes. And it was the best way for me at that time to really figure out God's will. And I did end up going to Temple University, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. I saw the fruits that was God's will for my life. It was wonderful. And that really built a confidence that God answers prayers and he will direct my footsteps and tell me where to go. And it was so funny because, when I told my mom, that I was going to Temple, she was so shocked. Her jaw dropped to the floor because she thought she did a really good job of trashing the school and that I would never, ever want to go there. But after I spoke to the Lord, after I spent time with the Lord redirected me there, and I knew that was my choice. And she eventually accepted it. And 4 years after, when I left that school, she also admitted, you're right. The Lord does speak to you, because they all saw the fruits of my time there. They saw the Lord blessing me there, and that was a sign that God had really ordained and chosen for me to go to that school. Now, what is this all about? This first faith experience, what is the whole point? The whole point is that God will meet you where you are. He will meet you on that first level. He will meet you on the rung. You don't have to have a PhD in faith in order for God to really meet you where you are. Gideon is a great example of that. Y'all, he must have asked at least 3 or 4 signs from God. Even as readers, as we're reading, we're like, okay, buddy, I think God showed enough miraculous signs to let you know that this is him. But he really wanted the assurance. And I love the fact that God wasn't mad at him. God wasn't upset with him that he just didn't believe. One, because God knew that his faith was immature. His faith was new. He was beginning and he was scared, and God was able to work that out with him. Now, God has no problem to meet you where you are. Just understand that God will not keep you where you are. He is going to build your faith. He's going to test it. He's going to make it harder. So even though I love the way I had my first faith experience, later on, as my faith became mature, I couldn't use that same method at all. Eventually, I even tried to use things like casting lots. Casting lots is kind of like a eeny, meeny, miny, mo kind of situation where you're like taking strips of paper, you're writing down yes, no, maybe so, or maybe you're writing down different things and kind of like praying over, putting them in a hat and praying over them and picking them. I tried those things eventually too, because sometimes I just wanted an answer from God and I wasn't sure how, even though I had that first faith experience. So we're gonna stumble a little bit and we're still gonna be in confusion sometimes. But God will still meet us where we are. And he winked at me a few times and answered me through those methods. But eventually, I could see why it wasn't a perfect system. And I could see that I couldn't stay in that type of system. And right now, even if I wanted to, I couldn't go back and do something like that because your faith has to mature. And just like a child, a baby, a parent is spoon feeding them their food, it's completely normal. The child can't do that for himself. So the parents are happy to feed their children, to spoon feed them. But when that child is 12, 15, and 17, no parent is going to accept if there's no good reason why I have to spoon feed you if you're fully capable of doing that or you've gained a level of maturity and skill to be able to do it for yourself or to do it in a different way. So that's how God is. He's that good father where he wants to help you. He wants to meet you where you are in your faith, but he's not going to keep you there because at the end of the day, every parent wants their children to grow, to become stronger, to be developed. And he's the same way. He wants your faith to grow stronger because, again, as I've said from last week, if you don't get rid of your fear of heights, you won't be able to go to the next level because eventually you're going to have to climb up that ladder to get to a new level. And that's what God wants for you. That's what he wants for me. That's what he wants for all of us. That his children are strong and they are faith filled, so faith filled that they can climb up heights that are unfathomable. So I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I really, really, really want you guys to engage with me and let me know. Have you put out a fleece? What was the results? Did it work for you? Do you still do that? I would also love to know what's your faith experience, your first faith experience. Love to know. So again, blessings. I can't wait till next week where we talk further. Let me know, guys. I think I might want to do a part 2 in this because I want to talk about fleeces and casting lots. I think that'd be an interesting topic to really discuss further. Are they biblical? Do they work? And things of that nature. I think I want to do a part 2 because I want to make sure that it's comprehensible and everybody understands it. So people are not sitting there like casting lots for answers. And I want to show you I want to talk about kind of like the dark side of that. So hopefully you stay tuned. I love you guys, and we will talk next week. Be blessed. Have a good one. Bye.